Cool. So, hi everyone. Nice to meet you. I'm Afkar Alwakil. I'm the coordinator of campus programming, marketing, and outreach for the Office of Student Activities. In today's session, I'm here to give you guys some best practices and information on how to market your student organization. I'm going to share some information about social media, branding, how to communicate with the campus community. I saw in the chat earlier, someone said building community and marketing. This is how to communicate with the campus community. Yeah, and let's review our agenda. So I'm going to go through this in 5 main portions. So first, branding and design. Number 2, tactics. 3, social media. 4, how to work with the Office of Student Activities for your marketing. And then with any remaining time that we have, I'm going to open it up to question and answer. So I'm pretty much going to move you guys through the entire process that we go through within the Office of Student Activities for creating marketing that goes out to the community. Also, if you have any questions during the presentation, feel free to just unmute yourself. Just say, hey, I have a question. I love a conversation. And that would help me get through this easier. Okay, so the very first part of this crash course, branding. So branding is a very important part of any marketing. It's used universally, any industry, any product that's going out, anything that you purchase or are part of is marketed in some way. And that marketing starts with branding. So branding is really how you shape what you're offering is perceived in the mind of the audience. So in our case, we're thinking about how our student organization is being perceived by students at Towson University, and also our campus community. So when I say campus community, I'm referring to not just our students, but also our departments who may offer collaboration opportunities for you all, and also the broader community that Towson touches in our area, and then also in Baltimore. So there's 3 main portions of branding that I feel like is very important for student organizations. So those 3 portions are your values, your personality, and your visuals. So when it comes to values, I'm referring to communicating what your organization's goals are, what you guys bring, what type of impact you want to have on students, or what are you trying to accomplish as a group on our campus. The second portion is personality. So we're thinking about showing who the people in your organization are, but then also showing what they're doing. So what actions are they taking? What events is your organization holding? And what steps are you taking to move towards accomplishing those goals? And the very last part is visuals. So you want to have a consistent and recognizable identity for your brand. And this is the part that most people think of immediately when we start talking about branding. People start thinking about names, titles, logos, color schemes, that type of thing. But this is actually the least important part of branding. Those other 2 steps, values and personality, come first, and they shape what your visual identity is going to be. So let's think about values a little bit deeper from the lens of a student organization. So again, we want to communicate what your organization's goals are, and this is step number 1, the most important. So your values for your organization are established within your organization. So this isn't something that your audience can create for you. This isn't something that Towson University can create for you, but this has to be something that's communicated and decided and agreed upon within your group. So the 3 main players when it comes to your values are management or the leaders of your organization, the internal stakeholders that you have, so the members of your organization, then also your audience. Typically, when it comes to organizational communication, the values or the missions or the goals are established by management, in this case, which is going to be your organization leaders, your e-board. It's then communicated and expressed to student org members, who are people who are going to be carrying out the value or carrying out their goals and everyday interactions with the audience. So if there's a difference between what your upper management or your student org leaders see as your goals and your vision, and that's different from what your actual members are, it's going to affect how the audience or the campus community is receiving your values and your mission. So we want to make sure that our values or your organization's goals are the same for everyone. Everyone has to have a strong understanding of what the goals are for your organization, and that way it'll help clean up our communication and make it easier to put it out towards the campus community. And then we also want to make sure that we're showing and telling what our values are. So we can decide, have these written down within our organization, but when it comes to actually acting these out in everyday life on campus, we want to make sure that we're keeping a record of how we're accomplishing these goals, whether that be through an event, whether that be through specific agenda or action items in your student org meetings, and that type of thing. And then we also want to make sure that we're telling our audience what these values are. So whatever way that you use within your organization to communicate with your audience most often. For Towson, we're very Instagram heavy. So a lot of people are posting on Instagram to show, what's happening within organizations. We want to make sure that we're always relating it back to what these goals are, what our values are. This helps shapes everything else that follows in branding. The second part of developing our brand as a student organization is your personality. So in traditional communications, like outside of the university landscape, our brand personality would be what type of things we say to our customers or how we interact with people who will be purchasing our product on a daily basis. But for our student organizations, in this situation, our personality really comes from who the people in your organization are. And that's something of great value when it comes to university, because a huge part of the student experience is communicating and connecting with other individuals on campus. So your personality is really carried off of what your organization's values are. This is how the members of your organization carry out those values in an everyday situation. So you want to show who your people are and then also what they're doing. A lot of organizations are actually really good at this, the first half of it. So they'll hop on social media pages or in their classes and their org meetings and introduce who the members are. They'll have a, meet the board post, but then we don't see them again for the rest of the semester. So we want to make sure that we're keeping up with the people that we introduce as the faces of our organization. And that's really what they're doing portion comes into play. So we're introducing our members online and then also in person, which I'm going to talk about a little bit more. We're going to show what people are missing and also what our accomplishments are. So when it comes to enacting your personality or activating what this brand personality you have going is, you want to show people what they're missing. So this could be, for example, an event recap, or actually just taking footage of an event or org meeting and actually showing people what it's like to be a part of your organization. And that helps develop your brand personality. And then also your accomplishments. Our student orgs are a huge part of the Towson community. They really shape what the student experience is. So make sure that you're not bragging, but regularly communicating what your org is accomplishing, and that'll help create that value for our students on campus. And then approach people when tabling. So when you're introducing your people in person, tabling is a huge thing at Towson. And the university actually has built into their system through specific locations for tabling, how you reserve it. It's built in, and that really shows how important the university values tabling. So this is really a student organization's main way to interface with students outside of the organization on a regular basis. But when we table, one thing that happens is that students tend to just sit behind the table and want people to approach them. But we all know ourselves, we don't really like to approach people. A lot of us are introverted. We're not just going to walk up to a table on a normal day when we have somewhere to go. So when you're tabling, you want to make sure that you're getting away from the table and actually approaching people and bringing them towards you. And that'll help to create that interpersonal communication. And that'll eventually give you the opportunity to show who your people are, show what they're doing, and actually communicate, activate your brand personality. And this is a really important thing, because since we are marketing on a college campus, we're actually living among our target audience. This is something that's very unique to the higher education landscape. So we have constant opportunities to interface and interact with our target audience, and we want to make sure we're taking advantage of that. Some other opportunities besides tabling to do this would be, for example, in the beginning of the semester, that's coming up. Every class starts off with that, introduce yourself and tell the rest of the class who you are and what you're doing. This is a great opportunity to plug your organization, because your professors are literally giving you a platform to tell everyone else in the room what's important to you. And if your org is important to you, then this would be the perfect spot to plug that. Also tell people who live on your floor, in your residences, in your dorms. These are people that you're going to be interacting with or passing by at least every single day. So that's another great way to sort of create that interpersonal communication. And just as a basic marketing principle, word of mouth and interpersonal communication are very literally the best tool when it comes to marketing. It's proven to be the strongest tool to create a relationship with your target audience and also to create that memorability. So that's why tabling is such a big thing on our campus. And then also you want to take advantage of these opportunities to have in-person connections with people. The third part of branding your organization, this is the visuals. So you want to have a consistent and recognizable identity. So again, this is our colors, our logo, our brand style, or your aesthetic. Then this also falls into the faces of your organization. So actually putting people and connecting them with the name of the organization. So this is, for example, having a spokesperson or regularly showing photos of what your organization is doing and who those people are. And then we also want to make sure we're consistent. So we can have all of these things decided. We can have a brand package where we have our specific colors, logo, style, written down and sort of agreed upon among our organization. But if we're not using this consistently every time we put our organization out there, it's not going to become recognizable and it really serves no purpose. So when it comes to having your visuals be successful in order to create a memorable organization or a memorable brand, consistency is key. And that's really something that applies to all aspects of branding, and I'll explain that a little bit more at the end. So all of these three key points of branding work together. So your values, your personality, and your visuals all work together to help create your story. So this is really how you help the community understand and also remember what you're bringing to campus. So each of these impact the other. They're all based off of that first step, which is your values. That shows up later in how your brand personality is generated or how you activate that brand personality. And then it's also reflected in your visuals. So you want all of these aspects to be cohesive. And if we're really going to boil it down to what the main impact and importance of each of these three values are, it creates a relevant brand. And that's really the goal of any marketer, any type of branding, is to keep relevant and connected with your target audience. So our values, communicating what we're bringing to campus, what our goals are, it helps students recognize that, hey, our organization is important. We're doing something that matters. And even if that's just, it matters on the sense of you're creating a friend group or you're creating social connections, it's still an important part of a student's life at Towson. Your brand personality, it's what's going to create interest. So people are interested in people. Connection is key. So when you're taking those opportunities to introduce yourself as a member of an org, when you're putting a face behind your brand or making the key members of your brand visible, that helps to create interest with the student population. One thing that's really cool about Towson that we all know is that we're a big school, but we have a very small feel. So when you are taking those opportunities to introduce your personality, your brand personality, and have that interpersonal communication at Towson, it has a lot of impact. We can recognize who those students are that are a part of these organizations and that are active and involved. And then lastly, your visuals help make your brand memorable. So when you have that consistency, you have normalized color, font style, photography style, a brand aesthetic, all of that helps just to create a memorable pattern for your target audience. Yeah, so all of these come together and it makes your brand relevant. So if you're important, you're interesting, you're memorable, this will help your brand to remain relevant in the audience's mind. And like I said, consistency is key. Don't only show up when you need something. So we all know those friends that we have, or maybe not friends, people in our lives who will only show up when they need something. They'll only call or text once something is going on and now you need your help. And those aren't our favorite people. And the same effect can happen with your brand. So if you're only putting your brand out there or applying your brand guidelines when you have a reason to, so if you're only posting or communicating with your target audience when you have an event or when you need them to show up to your bake sale or for your fundraiser, it doesn't leave a good impact on your target audience. So we want to make sure that we're being consistent. We're putting ourselves out there when we don't need something. So when we just want to tell people what we're up to and who we are, that's when you're really developing that relationship and that trust between you and your target audience. So that's a crash course on creating your brand. So follow these three main aspects of branding, and that'll help you create the basis of who you are as an organization. So moving on, focusing a little bit on the design process. So this is focusing in on that visual portion of our brand personality. There's three main steps that I take as a marketer when I'm creating visuals for the Office of Student Activities. One of my responsibilities is to help create and then also guide my student marketers in creating all of the printed digital marketing that goes out to the university. So the first step is thinking about our format and our mandatory. So are we creating a flyer, a poster, a social media post? What type of tactic are we trying to put our communication or our message into? And then our mandatories, what are these aspects that are part of our brand identity or brand guidelines? So is that a logo that has to be on every single piece of communication? Is it a slogan? Are there certain a slogan? Do you have certain blurbs that must be attached to like the bottom of every social media post? Do you have certain images that you're repetitively putting out there to create a memorable impact? You want to consider these mandatories first because that your format and your mandatories first because that affects how much information you can put on your design, and then also how it's laid out, which is the basis of creating any type of design. The second step is your theme and sketching your format. So you want to think about what the vibe of your event is or the vibe of your message. What does that really mean? You're thinking about your target audience and then again, your branding. So everything really comes off of having that solid branding at first. So when you're thinking about your target audience and your branding, you're considering what do they like, what would interest them, what are we trying to accomplish, what is our goal with this specific piece of communication. You use that to decide what type of images or alterations you can make to your piece of communication while still following your branding guidelines. A tip I always give to my students is actually draw a thumbnail. So being that you're students, you're busy, and it can actually end up taking a very long time to create a certain design or a certain piece of communication. I've been stuck in a loop before where like I'm trying to create a design and it's not coming out how I wanted to. And I think back to my process and I never even approached the situation with the plan. So you always want to make sure that you're actually drawing out a thumbnail. It can seem kind of annoying, but it helps in the long shot and saving time when you're creating this design. And me, I always draft twice. I've been doing this for 4 years, and I still have to draft all of my designs twice because it never looks good the first time around. So you have your thumbnail, you're following your plan that you decided on the design, but sometimes it ends up looking different. So you really want to keep this in mind for your timeline when you're creating some type of design. And I like to draft first, and then I compare it to a design that I like in order to decide what needs to be improved upon, and what I can sort of steal from another design. So here's an example. One of the programs within our office is Tigers Lead, so it's a leadership development certification program. It's a series of workshops. You guys may be familiar, and I am responsible for creating the branding and like the actual printed materials for Tigers Lead. So this is an example of something that I've designed, that I've planned out, I thumbnailed, and then I went to create it, and it didn't look how I thought it would. The colors didn't fit together, the image was awkward, and the vibe was wrong. So I went on Canva. We all love Canva. I'm using Canva right now. There's a bunch of great templates. It's an amazing resource. So I hopped on Canva, scrolled through to see what type of designs are there that I like. And I thought about what types of characteristics from this actual design can I steal to make my design better. So what in these images makes these images look good to me? So the first one was the color scheme. They use blue, a very calming color. You want to make sure you're referring to basic color theory, so colors have emotions or messages attached to them when it comes to marketing. I liked how they use gold text to highlight important aspects like Happy New Year. Also how they use vertical columns to break down the amount of information that they have on this page. So I had my draft, I compared it to things that are already created, or just use the templates off of Canva, it'll save you time as well. And I altered it to fit our brand guidelines and the brand personality that we wanted to accomplish with Tigers Lead. So here I applied, excuse me, I applied the bold gold text, the flat blue color, using columns to organize information. And I basically just use this process to collect a series of characteristics from graphic design pieces that looked good in order to help me with my design process. That saved me a bunch of time. I kept our mandatories down here. So a part of our brand guidelines is that we always have our lead at TU or student activities logo. In the corner, we always have our social media on there. And then we also reference involved at TU on every design. So you want to make sure that your branding and your mandatories are still there regardless of what design you end up choosing at the end. And then these are some resources for creating your actual design. So I don't believe that every student at Towson actually has access to like Adobe Creative Suite, but there are other options out there for ways to collect your assets together for your design and also put them together. So like I mentioned, Canva is a great one. If you have access to Adobe Photoshop or InDesign, those are great for creating your designs as well. Defont.com I always go to for downloading free fonts. These are not for commercial use, so you can't put these fonts on anything that you're selling. Aside from that, they're good to use within the university. Pixabay.com if you want copyright-free images, vectors, videos, anything like that. You want to make sure you're using copyright-free on social media, just to avoid any problems. Google and YouTube, search up Photoshop tutorials and templates. These are great skills to have as a marketer or as a communicator. Everybody in marketing is pretty much filling a dual role right now where they're focused on design just as much as the strategy and actually crafting that brand personality, message, and goals. Towson.edu/brand. So this is where you're going to find the official Towson University fonts, the official Towson University colors, the tiger tooth pattern, which is that checkered pattern that you see all over campus and all of our communication, and then also official logos. So if you're collaborating with a certain department at Towson, they'll probably want their logo on whatever piece of communication that you're creating, and you'll find those logos through towson.edu/brand. And the very last one is the Towson Photo Shelter. So whenever we have a university photographer come to an event, or also whenever a university photographer takes pictures, so whether that be they're just walking around campus like Kanji does, taking his photos, if there's a photographer at an event, graduation photos, also headshots, if you get one, the official headshot day at Towson, all of that is uploaded to Towson Photo Shelter. You need access to get to photos and videos from this site, but you can contact me after the session if you'd like access. I can help you navigate that process. But this is where you'll find everything official Towson. Another resource for creating, I forgot to mention. So Canva is one, Photoshop is one, and then there's also photopea.com, which is a ripped version of Photoshop that happens in your browser. It's totally free and it functions basically the same. So we have our brand personality, we've created our design, and now we're sort of thinking about how we get this message out to the campus community. So this is what our tactics are. Yeah, so tactics are the literal pieces of communication that you're putting out. This is also called marketing collateral by some people. So this is referring to, for our specific Towson campus, flyers, posters, quarter sheets, pamphlets, story posts, feed posts, collab posts, Instagram reels, videos, tweets, Facebook posts, involved at TU notices, which is a very important one, TU Today post, the digital display screens that are all over campus are available for use. Tabling is a tactic, and then also paid ads. So these are what I've collected and what the Office of Student Activities uses in our regular day-to-day marketing. These are the outlets that the university has created and also manages for us to use to get our message out there. I highlighted 3 of these because I think that these are very important for student organizations and that they're not used enough or used in the best way. So number 1, email. If you're hosting an event as a student organization, or if you're tabling, it's a great idea to start to collect emails of people that you meet or interact with as an organization. So you want to create a newsletter list. This doesn't mean that you're necessarily creating a newsletter itself that you have to post regularly, but you want to develop this channel of communications because it's the primary way that marketers communicate with their audience and also students on this campus. People don't really think of the idea or sort of agree with the idea on first thought that students are looking at their email, but we are looking at our email. I was a student here and I was constantly on my email because that's where my Blackboard notifications would go. Any communication from my professors or from my job on campus would come through my email. Secondly, TU Today posts. So TU Today is that newsletter. It might go to your spam that hits our email every day, I think at 9 a.m. It goes out to every single person in the university and there's no option to opt out. So if you want to get your message out and blast it, this is the best way to do it because every single person is going to receive this straight to their device in the morning. To post on TU Today, I can also help you navigate that process. I'll have my contact information later on in this presentation. And then tabling. So like I mentioned before, there's a bunch of tabling spots on campus. They're free to use, and this will put you right in the student's pathway as they're walking to class, as they're getting food. This is that prime opportunity to create that word of mouth or that interpersonal communication. When we think about the impacts of these 3 channels, 72% of people identify word of mouth as a primary influencer for when they're making a purchasing decision or when they're being converted to action. So like I mentioned before, this is the #1 way, the best way to convince people and also leave an impact on your target audience. You want to be able to speak to them face to face. Also, 92% of people trust their families and friends more than any advertisement or any other piece of communication that you'll see. So again, you want to be able to communicate your message and your goals and your brand personality to people around you. And then also email. 89% of marketers use email as their primary channel for advertisements or marketing because #1, it's free, it's easy to create and also easy to send out, and people are looking at their email. Everything else I would use sparingly. So when we had the Blizzard event, for example, at the end of our last semester, we did guerrilla marketing where we sort of dropped these emergency supply boxes all over campus with a QR code. Doing things like that are sort of like out of the norm, I wouldn't do often. #1, because there aren't a ton of policies written to give you guidelines on what you should and shouldn't be doing. And then also #2, there's a lot of organizations and a lot of people marketing on the campus, and we don't want to annoy the students and the people working here. So if you are going to try to do some type of guerrilla marketing, definitely reach out to like a department, your advisor, or campus collaborator to help them guide you through that process. When we're deciding what tactics we want to use, our goal is to have a combination of digital and printed items, just because that's a proven marketing principle. People are still being receptive to printed items, so flyers do work in some cases. Outside of the university situation, people mailing directly to people's homes in their mailbox is still effective. Magazine advertisements are still effective. So in combination with doing your social media, with doing your emails, you want to make sure you're also hitting those printed channels. Again, our target audience, we want to consider where those students are on campus and what interests them. So your club should have been out, identified what your target audience is just based off of the theme and the purpose of your club. You want to think about where those students are. So are they all in the science complex? Are you mainly going to find your students in the Union Food Court? Where are these people? And that's where you want to place your tactics that you're creating. And then my little tidbit, if you're paying for any piece of marketing, you want to invest in something that's reusable or is an evergreen. So if we're going to pay to print flyers that are advertising our club, we don't want to pay for flyers that are going to be related to a specific event just because it only has a one-time usage. But if you create an evergreen flyer, for example, it just has like general meeting times, contact information, you want to post that around campus, that'll be your best bet to save money and also not be so wasteful. Moving on. So specifically social media, what are the guidelines that we follow as a department for social media? I'm going to communicate that to you and also why we do what we do. So many of you guys may have seen the Towson Student Activities Instagram page. It's at Towson Stu Act. And we're really in the process of transforming how we use our social media page. So a habit within the university and in higher education overall is to create a wall of flyers, basically where the only time you're posting on social media is to post your design graphic or your flyer. And we love to do that just because we put so much effort into creating that we think that's what people want to see. That's actually ineffective. So we follow the 80-20 rule for social media. So 80% of your social media messaging should focus on engaging your audience. So this is not to sell them something, not to buy their time or their participation in your event or your initiative, but we actually just want to give them information that's going to engage, inform, or entertain them. 20% of your social media messaging can be that directly promotional aspect, but you don't want to oversell. So this method is proven to help retain engagement on social media pages. It's also not dependent on frequency. So this doesn't mean that you have to be posting every single day. If your goal as a group is to post 3 times a week, then you should still find that 80-20 balance within your posting schedule. Or let's say that your org decides instead of posting flyers and pictures, we're only going to post reels and videos from now on. Within your reels, each one of those videos individually, 80% of that content can be your engaging messaging, and then 20% is where you can plug your promotion. And that might happen in your captions saying like, hey, if you want more information, stop by our org meeting, or contact so-and-so to be a part of our club, that type of thing. Then this also helps increase discoverability. So because 80% of your page is going to be engaging for your audience, that means that this content is also shareable. So it's not going to directly apply to like a one specific event or be something that only a person in your club can relate to or somebody looking to participate in your club can relate to. This increases the shareability. You'll be found on the Explore page. Your reels will go out to more people, that type of thing. And then we also want to think about the visibility of the kinds of posts that we're making. So for example, people who click on your stories are willing viewers. They're purposely clicking on your story to watch your story. So you should be fine to sort of share your promotional messaging regularly in your stories. But for example, reels or your feeds, those are going out to more people than just your subscriber or your followers or your subscribers, depending on the platform. So you want to be very mindful about what you're putting out and who's going to be able to see it. At the bottom, these blocks that I have at the bottom are an example of the posting schedule that we follow for our department. And this is how we use that 80-20 rule or have that 80-20 balance in our content. So our goal is to post 5 days a week. So Monday through Friday, we want to be sharing something on our page directly to the feed. So our 20%, when you do the math, it lands that 1 day a week can be our 20% of social media messaging that's promotional. And then 4 days a week, we have our fun, engaging content or educational content. So the way that we manage that is by creating that week of events posts that we put out every Monday or Tuesday, just literally a flyer dump of everything that's happening within that week or that time period, whatever we've selected. And then for the rest of the week, we just want content that's going to be useful to our followers to help engage and retain them. So Tuesday, for example, Tigers League Tuesday, which is educational. And then Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, we might post reels or videos or a photo or something. So this is an example of the wall of flyers. So on the left is our page. I think in 2020, if you look at it, we've had literally a ton. Like you can scroll down our page for maybe like 3 years back. And it's literally just flyers and just graphics. It may look fun, entertaining, but it wasn't helping our page grow. And it wasn't what we found that our audience wanted to see. On the right, we started using the 80-20 method. Then also getting the faces of students on our page more often. So like the people you often see on our page at Towson StuAct are our student activities marketing team who are undergraduates. We'll also post pictures from events that are happening on campus and sharing information outside of us trying to sell an event. And when we started doing that, we're still in the process of like solidifying it. But once we started doing that, we did see a lot of growth on our page. We gained hundreds of followers and the number continues to like ebb and flow. But it makes the page look a bit better. You might recognize the type of feed that you see on the left when you look at a lot of like student organization pages or even other departments who are only showing up when they need to sell something. So they're only appearing in front of their target audience when they want to buy their engagement, which isn't effective. So definitely diversify your feed, specifically on Instagram, because everything's sitting there. Get faces of people out there, do pictures, something aside from a designed graphic. So the very last portion of this presentation, how do you work with the Office of Student Activities? So like I mentioned, we have the student activities marketing team. So it consists of myself as a coordinator, we have a graduate assistant of marketing, and then we have 5 undergraduates who all work to create content, to help market the events that we're hosting, and also to help support our departments and organizations at Towson in sharing what they're working on to the rest of the university as well. So if you want to work with us or you need our aid, the best way right now is to contact us through our social media pages. So we can be found at Towson StuAct, STUACT, on all platforms. So we have Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and TikTok, I believe. So for getting your content on our week of events post that goes out every Monday or Tuesday, you want to DM us your information or tag us in something that you posted. And for this, we prioritize, obviously, our events first. Those of our collaborators will go ahead. And then from there, we just go based on how early you sent your post. And we go in chronological order. So if you have an event that's coming up sooner than like the next org, we'll put that event before yours in the carousel. One thing to note is that there's only 10 spots in the Instagram carousel, so we can't guarantee that every person who DMs us or tags us will make it into the post, but that's a resource there for you to send. Again, our stories we post, we actually share a lot of posts from student organizations and departments freely on our stories. So this is where we're selling a lot for engagement and participation. So if you feel free to DM us any stories that you have on Instagram, and we'll get those up shared on our page as well. And then an initiative that we have specifically to help our student organizations market themselves going into the new semester is student org highlight videos. So we want to create a series of videos highlighting what it's like to be a student organization member and what happens at your club meetings, so like what the day-to-day experience is like. So we have this QR code here right now if you want to take a screenshot or a picture. We have a form open that's going to ask you to submit videos from your club experience, a short interview with a member of your student organization. So it can literally just be like a voice note describing like what it's like or what the goals of your organization are. And we'll edit the video, put it together, and then we'll share it on our page and post you as a collaborator on the post. So definitely do that. We're going to have that rolling and going out at the beginning of the semester. So those are 3 main ways to work with our office right now for marketing, heavily on the social media side. Aside from that, you can contact me directly. I'm the coordinator of marketing for our office, like I said. I'm also the only coordinator of marketing for our office. So if you have questions about marketing, if you want to propose some marketing content collaborations, or if you just need help finding resources on campus to support your marketing and communications, shoot me an email and I'll try my best to get back to you. Yeah, some things we will not do, have this little bar at the bottom. Just for clarification, we won't fund your marketing, so we won't pay for anything to be created or anything to be posted. If that ever happens, that likely means that you're a collaborator on an official event that we're hosting. Outside of that, we won't pay for your marketing to be created or shared. We don't take graphic design requests from student organizations right now, just because there's over 150 of you guys, and that would overwhelm us and our team. But we can give you design sort of like consulting, or we can feel free to like send us a design and ask like how can we improve, or what can be changed, but we won't do the work for you. We also won't distribute your flyers. Again, that'll overwhelm our team. And the places where you can put flyers on campus are free for anybody to walk up and post their flyer themselves. And then we also, like I mentioned, we won't guarantee that your posts will make it into the week of events, just because of the number and the limitation with that channel. Yeah, so definitely I would scan this QR code. We're offering you guys a free video, very little effort on your side, and we'll do the editing and sharing on our side for a highlight video. And that is it. Feel free to ask me any questions now. Here's my contact information again. My email, our Instagram page is Towson Stuact, actually on all social medias. Our office is University Union, Suite 251, and I'm in room number E, letter E. And there's my phone number as well, directly to my office if you'd rather call. Any questions, anything that you had a concern about or that you wanted to know that I did not share coming into the session?
Yes, I have one. So maybe you said this and I missed it, so I'm sorry, but so with like posting physical flyers around campus, could you just kind of like give a quick overview of like the rules for that, and kind of like, yeah, where we would go about like getting them approved and things like that, and like what, I guess like where are we allowed to post them?
Yeah, okay, so if you've been at Towson for a while, you remember like maybe like even 2 years ago, there were a lot of spots for you to post flyers, and that's actually diminishing in the new buildings that they're renovating. So right now, flyers can mostly be posted in academic buildings, like when you walk through, for example, Van Bocklin or like CLA, they have those pin boards where you can put up your flyers.
Right.
Those are free for your use. I don't
Okay.
believe you need approval to put on there. But if you find that you do, if you would like to get approval just as like a second security, department chairs, offices, and then If you're not in an academic building, if you're in another building, for example, like Burdick or the Union, you'd get, or West Village Commons, excuse me, you'd get approval from the info desk, and they'll let you put your flyers up that way.
Okay, perfect. So it just like, yeah, so we could just make a flyer and basically put it up in an academic building without approval. And then in West Village, Union, or Burdick, we just ask the info desk and they'll put it up for us, or they just approve it and then we put it up.
It varies depending on like who's at the info desk, but they'll take your flyers from you.
Perfect.
And then for housing and residence life, you would go to their office in West Village and ask the front desk like if they would be able to distribute your flyer to
Okay.
the buildings and dorms. Yeah,
And
great question.
then, just one more thing about that. So, I see a lot of groups too, like putting the little like tents on tables. Is that also like we can just do that without approval, or is that different?
No, that one is different. And they're actually trying to move away from doing that at all. So typically the table tents that you see are created by departments, then they're approved by the building manager. So for example, the ones you see in the Union Food Court, Cab and Athletics have done that. And they were able to because they're directly related to a department and they got approval. Yeah.
Okay. So it's kind of like discouraged for group, like student orgs to do that then.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I have a question.
Yeah.
So if we want to promote an event on a digital screen in specific colleges, who should we reach out to?
So there's a form on the Towson website if you search digital displays, where they'll let you input your event name, location, date, or any other comments that you want on the screen. And they'll generate that image for you and put it up. That's free for you guys to use. The displays that you see around campus that are like designed and like have a specific image on there, those are created by art services, and they're the only people who are allowed to create and put advertisements on those screens. And that is not free. So if you would like a digital display made, you'd have to have money set aside in your budget to have that created and designed and put up. But there is the free version of that, which just has normal Towson branding. And it's in form on the Towson website.
Okay, thank you.
Quick question.
Yeah.
So I guess I was wondering how you would like recommend, because in my club we have like I guess a person who does social media, but before we had that person I was kind of doing everything. And I realized like it's a lot of workload because my club, like we have an Instagram and then we're also like starting a blog, and I was just wondering like how would you recommend like divvying up the tax? Should it be like split amongst all members? Because I recognize like last semester we weren't really having like consistent posts, mainly because the person responsible for it wasn't that invested. So it should be something like we all do, or just like one person is responsible for social media and marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. So for my marketing team, like I mentioned, we're 7 people in total. The people who are responsible for our social media posts are just 2 people. Just because we found like for our team specifically, that's a good balance between them having someone to bounce ideas off of, but then also like if they're not able to post, there's a backup person who knows what's supposed to go up. I wouldn't recommend that everyone in your organization be posting on your social media page, just because that's kind of like the situation where you have too many hands in the pot.
Right.
Messaging that you want to go out might get diluted, or there might be a misunderstanding in like how you want your thing posted. But usually like 2, maybe 3 people as a backup is usually good. And something that I also recommend is having a content calendar. So you don't have to have every post like literally created down to like the caption and the image going out, but you want to plan a general idea of like what types of posts you want to go out on what day of the week. That way you'll make sure that everybody's on the same page.
All right, thank you.
I had a question about tabling.
Yeah.
Like I understand like in the union you have to like request the table, but like do you know the process to get like a table anywhere else on the campus?
Yeah, so it's actually the same process through 25 Live. The tabling locations that they have set in the system are the only tabling locations you can have. Even us as a department, we can't request a new tabling location, they'll deny it. Yeah, so same way that you do through the for getting tables in the union, you go into 25 Live and then search up tabling. The other locations are in front of Cook Library, Freedom Square, under Lecture Hall. I think there's maybe during out in Tiger Plaza, maybe during the warmer months. And then West Village Commons, I think they have 2 tables available in the first floor, like before you head into the food court. There are also, I think, tabling locations in academic buildings. In my experience, when I've requested a table in an academic building, I will get communication from like the department chair or the building manager, and they'll walk you forward through like the process of getting that table actually put up.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Can you explain again how we get events posted to you today?
Yeah, so in the university, there's individuals in each department or each division of the university who are approved to do posting into you today. So like I'm one of them. And then if you go on the Towson website, search to you today, there's a page where they'll list out all of the other people that you can contact. And I think there is somebody specifically designated for student organizations. So what they'll ask from you is that you give them like an image that you want to put out, and then also the message in the actual TUTA post. So that's created through WordPress. So you can literally just sort of create it like a blog style post or like a newsletter kind of post for TU Today, and then send it out through the correct channel.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, a lot of the stuff you'll find on the university website if you search it up. You could also email me as well, if that's easier as well, for TU Today posts.
Got it.
I guess some more information about TU Today. The rule is that for any single message, you can post it 3 times a week, but the title has to be different for each post, just to help you manage like the frequency. Any other questions? Okay, cool. If that's all, I guess I will stop the recording.